As Philip has mentioned in a couple of previous episodes, when I was working as a product wholesaler for an insurance company, I did probably approaching 1,000 Social Security seminars. There was a run there where I was doing at least one a night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sometimes two per day. And there was one stretch where I did that for like 4 or 5 months in a row. And I would always start with the same little story about when I first became aware of the Social Security program. And it's when everybody does, right? It's when you get your first paycheck. I was working for a Chinese restaurant when I was in college, and I remember we didn't get a very high wage because we got tips. But I remember thinking, oh yeah, I get my paycheck, and I grab the paycheck and I look at it and I'm like, wow, I knew it was going to be small, but it's even smaller than I thought. And then of course you look at all the information and you're like, all right, well, there's income tax and all right, state tax, and who's this FICA guy? Right? Or it's either FICA or OASDI. Who's OASDI? Of course, those two things are FICA is the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, which was the act that instituted Social Security, and OASDI is Old Age, Survivor, and Disability Insurance, which is the official name of the Social Security retirement and disability portion. So with that, we will start episode 17 of the ValueAbility podcast, the Basics of Social Security Part 1. Between this episode and the last, we have decided that Social Security is deep enough of a topic that we are going to split it up into 2 episodes. So we will cover 4 main topics this week, and then we'll cover another 4 next week. The ValueAbility podcast is for financial advisors, business owners, and anyone interested in financial planning, business, leadership, and personal development. We believe that financial success comes from building a plan on the foundation of your values, and building your ability will help you get there. My name is Danforth Fleek. I was a financial advisor and, as I mentioned, a product wholesaler for over 20 years in the financial services business. And I'm joined each week by my co-host, friend, and mentor, Philip Simonson. Philip was in financial services for over 40 years as a financial advisor, field leader, sales trainer, and was a senior manager in areas as wide-ranging as advisor development and field operations. I don't think we've mentioned, Philip, that one of our big annual social things we do together is our fall hunting trip. For well over 20 years now, Philip and I have gone with first one and now 2 of Philip's sons, and one of our longtime financial advisor friends from South Dakota. And we meet up used to be in far western North Dakota to do some pheasant hunting each year.
And goose hunting, your favorite. Sit in that
once,
pit.
And only once. And no, I didn't think there was going to be a McDonald's truck.
Oh, you knew exactly where you finished my thought without me even saying anything. 20 below.
The entire time we were out goose hunting, these guys are going on and on and on about a McDonald's truck. And I'm like, give me a break. We're in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota. There is no McDonald's truck coming. And ever since then, they're like, you thought there was a McDonald's truck coming. But, Philip, here's the issue with my kidney condition, my doctor has said, bottom line, I can't be involved in group activities until there's a vaccine. I don't think that's going to happen before November or October now. This year it's October.
You're still going.
So
we'll practice social distancing. And for those who we don't hit too much anyway. It's more of the social gathering in the evenings, enjoying our dogs, and just really ourselves.
Well, that was going to be my point, is if I can't go, you're going to have to take my dog. My dog Rogers is a Vizsla, and if he doesn't get to go hunting in the fall, he's going to come back and chew my face off all winter long. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in your thought process. We'll figure out a way, even if I have to be the boy in the bubble.
Happen. It will. The boy in the bubble. We will be there. The tradition lives on.
Fantastic. You can find the ValueAbility podcast wherever you find your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. We have a YouTube channel. Search Value-Ability on YouTube to find us there. You can also find us on our website, value-ability.com. Click on the episodes tab, and our player is there. Wherever you find us, like, review, subscribe, and share. And as we asked last week, hopefully if you're listening on a regular basis, we requested last week that you reach out to one person and share it, our podcast with them. We're going to ask that again. If you could just take the time to think of one person that you think would be interested in hearing our content and reach out to them. If you're a regular listener, it would be a huge help to us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at value_ability. Twitter is the best way to get in touch with us, and Instagram is where we post any visuals. I think we're going to have any visuals for these next 2 episodes, but when we do have documents, we put them out on Instagram so you can see the visuals on the go if you're out and about. You can also contact us by finding us on Facebook. Search at ValueAbility, all one word. So with that, we will jump in to the basics of Social Security. And, right off the bat, we'll just let you know the 4 topics that I have on the slate for this week. And they are, how do you qualify for your benefit? How is that benefit calculated? What is full retirement age, and why is it important? And then filing early versus filing late. Next week, we will get into some more specifics about when you are actually filed, working while you are filed. There are some rules around working before your full retirement age, taxation when you're on benefit, and then spousal benefits. And then we'll talk a little bit about the solvency of the program, in my opinion. But this week we will jump in with how do you qualify? So as I mentioned in the intro, I used that intro with the term FICA to point out to people, people refer to Social Security as a tax. It is really a federally mandated insurance program. Mm-hmm. The Federal Insurance Contributions Act. You are making a contribution into an insurance plan. Now, it's federally mandated. If you want to think of it as a tax, you can think of it that way. In reality, you are making contributions into an insurance plan. So from that standpoint, you have to qualify for the plan in order to receive benefits. And the one thing I also point out is that if you do not qualify, you do not receive benefits. From the Social Security Retirement Trust Fund, nobody who has not qualified for a benefit receives payments out of that plan. Now, there are other programs, supplemental security income, which gets administered by Social Security. SSI is a quote unquote welfare program, but it is not part of the Social Security trust fund from the standpoint of retirement benefits. So if you're getting a payment out, it's because you have paid in some way. To qualify on your own benefit, you have to have worked for 10 years or 40 quarters and earned right around $1,200 per quarter. So about $1,200 in earnings per quarter makes that a qualified quarter. You need 40 quarters in order to become insured under the plan. And once you become insured, you are considered the primary insured on your Social Security number. Once you get insured, you cannot become uninsured from a retirement standpoint. So if you work for 10 years and then never work again, you are going to receive a retirement benefit. Now, it's probably going to be pretty small, and we'll touch on that in the next section when we're talking about how your benefit is calculated, but you do not lose your retirement benefit if you stop working after you have become qualified. Now, that is not true for disability. The disability is a totally different qualification. It is you have worked 3 of the previous 5 years, and so do not confuse those two. You can become uninsured from a disability standpoint under the Social Security program if you do not work 3 out of the previous 5 years. Now, this becomes important, especially with many workers' compensation claims, because people will go down the road of the workers' comp claim first, and sometimes that will take longer than 2 years. And then that doesn't work out. They don't get that workers' compensation claim, and they turn around and try to file Social Security and find out, oh, oops, I'm now not covered because I haven't worked for 2 years because I got injured on the job. So I always say, even if you're following up on a workers' compensation claim, file for Social Security disability. You're almost certainly going to get rejected. There's some monstrous rejection rate. It's like 80 or 90%. Your first round gets rejected. So you're likely going to get rejected anyway and have to file an appeal. So get that claim in before 2 years from when you stopped working because of your disability. Otherwise, you will become uninsured from a disability standpoint. So, but from a retirement standpoint, you get those 10 years, 40 quarters, you are covered and under your primary Social Security number. Now, many people then misunderstand that 10 years or 40 quarters as having something to do with how your benefit is calculated. Really has absolutely nothing to do with how your benefit is calculated. Now, those 10 years may end up in your calculation, but oftentimes parts of those 10 years don't, because the calculation is made based on your highest 35 years of earnings. So they look at your entire earnings history and they take it all in today's dollars. So they index everything based on inflation into today's dollars. And then they rank all of your earnings years from highest to lowest. It doesn't matter in what order in time they happen. Many people ask that question. Does it matter whether if I earn money early or late, especially people that want to, slow down? Like one of our questions last week's episode asked about, going part-time later in your career. Now that can have an impact on the estimated benefit, but it's not going to change any of your prior earnings. So once those earnings are in there, they're in there and they are going to use that in that calculation. So now, as I mentioned last week, to give you an estimate of your future benefit, if you're, say you're my age, 46 years old, and you're looking out, okay, my full retirement age is 67. So I got 21 years. What they do to estimate my benefit at my full retirement age of 67 is they take my income from last year and they say, we're going to assume that you make that same income for the next 21 years and then calculate your benefit based off of that. So if I don't meet that level of income, my benefit can fluctuate. It's not locked in. As I mentioned last week, no one at Social Security will ever tell you what your benefit is going to be. They will always tell you that it is an estimated amount until you actually file. And literally, if you say, well, if I file today, what would my benefit be? They will say, I'll estimate that your benefit is like, they're absolutely trained to not to say your benefit will be X until you have filed. And once you have filed, they can then say, this is going to be your benefit. But they absolutely will not give you that number because it is an estimate. Things can change if you decide not to file that day and then something changes. They don't want to have you come back and say, well, Social Security person said this was going to be my benefit. So they take the top 35 years of your earnings history, I said, in today's dollars. So as an example, if you made $10,000 in 1975, that is getting indexed into today's dollars. Now I'm working off of numbers from when I did these publicly last, which was about 8 years ago. Then it was indexed to about $40,000. So it's probably somewhere in the range of about 45,000, 45, 50,000, somewhere around there, I would say. But your past earnings, don't forget that they're being indexed. People say that all the time. My dad is a great example. He was looking at some of his early income. He's like, oh, that job can't possibly have much to do with my Social Security benefit. He was actually missing some income in his calculation. And I was like, hey, this was in the 50s where he was missing it. And I'm like, that's actually going to have a pretty big impact because, even though it was $1,500, it's indexed into today's dollars. So they index everything into today's dollars, rank them, take the top 35, and add that up into one big number. Then they take that number and divide by what I call the magic number of 420, which just happens to be the number of months in 35 years. And that will give you an average lifetime monthly earnings. And that then gets dumped into a calculation that changes slightly from year to year, but the effect of it is relatively similar over time. And it's to create essentially a bottom-loaded benefit. So your first roughly $800, you get back pretty much dollar for dollar. The next section, you get back at a lower rate. And it's around 30 or 35%. And then up to, I think it's about $1,800 in benefits. And then above that, everything is at 15 cents on the dollar. So the net effect is that your lower earners are getting a larger percentage of their lifetime average earnings, but they will get a smaller benefit, and your higher earners will get a higher benefit, but a lower percentage of their lifetime average earnings. Now, if you max out, I did the calculation at one point, and I give you max out for 35 years, at the top of the earnings limit, I want to say that you get back, it's somewhere right around 20% of your lifetime average earnings, but the average is about 40%, and that is the target of the program. In fact, it hits that target every year as a group. Each group that hits retirement age, they're getting back 40% of their lifetime average earnings. And most people are in that range. The average payment primary insurance amount is about $1,200 per month, right, across the United States. It's a little bit higher in the Midwest and Northwest, and then in the rest of the country, it's a little bit lower. But
because of the unions? Being union states?
I always thought it was because the weather was crappy and we just worked more. Going back to the weather. But it may also be, as you said, a little bit higher earnings for your average worker because of unions. That could play something into it because of the industrial production in the Midwest and Northwest as well.
Very good. Dan, best practice on this. Would it be to, let's say, after you've filed your tax returns and give it a month or 2 months? I don't know how quickly you can go out to SSA.com and you check your records.
SSA.gov.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Gov. Hello.
Yep.
Good best practice. Like you said, they're all perfectly. We're all perfectly imperfect. Check to make sure they recorded you properly.
Absolutely.
At least annually, check that after, I don't know, X amount or weeks or months after you've filed your taxes.
Yes. So when you file your taxes, they will generally get applied. Since we file, early in the year, it's not going to happen until the following year. Mm-hmm. So as an example, if I filed my 2019 taxes, I did it before the pandemic. I did it in early March. That number won't show up until my 2021 statement. But yes, you should be checking annually. About 1 out of 5 earnings histories is incorrect for a whole host of reasons. Especially if you predate 1975, they went back and put in a whole bunch of past income into the program in the mid-70s. Military earnings was one of those. So if you were in the military prior to 1975, definitely go back and check. That's where I found out my dad.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, I think it ended up being like a $50 difference, but I always say, hey, that $50 is yours. You're entitled to that, Right. Won't go off in a huge aside, but the term entitlement is used for Social Security kind of as a pejorative or a negative, but it's an entitlement because you earned it.
Absolutely.
Not because you are entitled to it. There are programs you are entitled to just for being a citizen or something else. And then there are entitlements you are entitled to because you contributed. And that is what Social Security is. You're entitled to that benefit. So definitely check it every year. And if you haven't ever checked it, go back. People will often ask, well, what would I need to correct it? Tax return. That is what you're going to have. So if you don't have your past tax returns, you're going to have to then go back to the company that you worked at and try and get the information from them. But it can be done. And it's actually not a terrible process. They're usually quite helpful in getting those things corrected. But yes, so also on that note, you get your Social Security statement 3 months before your birthday. Now, I figured this out years before because my birthday is December 20th and my mother's birthday was actually September 20th. So it was literally exactly 3 months before my birthday. And I would always get my Social Security statement right around my mom's birthday. So I actually figured that out years before I learned it. But it is generated then. And that's when you would see it. So I wouldn't see my 2019 number until September 20th of 2021. But yes, fixing it right then is by far the easiest. It's a great question. Many people ask that. Now other people will say, well, I can't remember what I earned back in 1982. And I said, well, look at your earnings statement and just see, does anything look weird? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, there's a 0 in 1984. Were you working? Yeah. Okay, well, probably something's wrong. Right? Or, hey, no, I was in an accident and I didn't work that year. Okay, well, that makes sense, but take a look, see that. And if we can get that corrected, as I mentioned, you're entitled to that benefit. So that calculation I mentioned gives you a number that is called your primary insurance amount.
PIA.
Yep, PIA. And it is crucial to think of it from that standpoint. And what your primary insurance amount is the amount you are due on a monthly basis in the month that you turn your full retirement age. Now, full retirement age is slightly different for different people. We've moved now to a time frame where most folks have a full retirement age of age 66. So it's years 1943 through 1954 have a full retirement age of 66. From 1954 up through 1960, then it goes up in 2-month increments. So 1955 is 66 in 2 months. 56 is 66 in 4 months, and so on. And then if you're born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is age 67. Now, I'm going to use age 66 just because there are going to be some people out there that still have that as their full retirement age. To just know that when I'm talking about this last section that we're going to cover, which is filing early versus filing late, that it would be different if your full retirement age was different. But I'm going to use age 66 in all my examples here. Okay. So let's assume that your primary insurance amount, just for ease of calculation in your head, is $1,000 per month, and your full retirement age is age 66. Now, everybody's early retirement age is age 62, regardless of what your full retirement age is. And your benefit is roughly reduced by about 5% per year for every year that you file early. It's about 5% early, and then it accelerates a little bit towards the end. But the net effect is that if your full retirement age is age 66, you file at age 62, it is a 25% reduction in your benefit. Now, that is on a monthly basis. So if you file at age 62, it would be $750. If you waited a full year, like I said, it would be about 5% more. So at age 63, it would be about $800. But if you filed at age 62 and a half, it's going to be right in the middle. It's going to be $775. So each month you qualify, it's going to be essentially 5/12 of a percent higher over that month. Now, for Social Security, a day is a month. So when you get into a month, if you file on the first of that month, you are filing in that month. So if you file on the 30th of that month, you're also filing in that month. So it does not make any sense to wait. You should generally file. People ask this question often too: how far in advance should I file? There are things out there that say 3 months in advance. 3 months is the limit to how far in advance you can file. You really don't need to file that far in advance today. Back when everything was done by mail, it wasn't a bad idea to go in as early as you could. Now, the way that checks go out, they go out on Wednesdays. If you're born on the 1st through the 10th, your check comes, it's not even a check, it's an electronic payment now. Your payment comes on the 2nd Wednesday of the month. If you're on the 11th, through the 20th, it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month, and then the rest of the month, it's the 4th Wednesday of the month. So if you're in that first group, the earliest that 2nd Wednesday could be is the 8th of the month, right?
Right.
First is Wednesday, and the following Wednesday is the 8th.
So, Dan, if I filed, I'm 62. I'll be October 19th. Of course, I'm going to be the 3rd Wednesday. But let's say I file at 63, and I file in January. When can I expect to get my first check?
Yeah, so you file for your benefit, and you are entitled to benefits in that month. You receive your checks 1 month in arrears. And so if you file in that month, you're eligible for that benefit and you will get paid the following month.
Oh, so okay. I thought there'd be
bigger lag.
Yeah.
Not there's hardly any lag. You could file literally at the end of the month, and if you're the third Wednesday and things fall right, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for most processing. So you could file, but that's where I was going. Even if you're that second Wednesday, which the earliest that would be the 8th, if you filed on the 1st of January, you're almost certainly going to get a check in February, regardless of when you get it, because that's 5 weeks is the shortest amount of time that could possibly be between when you file. So I would always tell people, you could go in a little bit earlier and say, hey, I want to file as of this future date. That's fine. But I always say filing on the 1st of the month before you want to start receiving checks is 99% of the time more than enough. You do not have to go into Social Security any longer. You can file on the SSA website. About 40% of people do file without going into a Social Security office. Now I think they're all closed right now, so I think it's your only option if you're filing because of the COVID pandemic. But once things do open up again, filing online, if it's a regular filing and you don't have any questions, it's very, very easy to do. I've helped a wide range of people do it from, isn't there a nunnery and a monastery up around Duluth somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I helped a bunch of the nuns up there file once. And
the Benedictine.
Yeah, and watching them use a mouse was pretty funny. They were pushing it around with one finger. I'm like, no, you can grab the whole thing, move it around.
Saint Scholastica, Stanbrook Hall. I worked there.
Yep. Yep. No, they were wonderful to work with.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, very sweet. Wash pots and pans, Sister Rebecca.
So, now, you can also delay benefits after your full retirement age, and this is where there is a huge amount of benefit. Your benefit actually grows faster after your full retirement age. It grows 8% per year after your full retirement age. So from age 66 all the way to age 70, it grows at 8%. So it's going to grow another 32% if you wait all the way to age 70. So that $1,000 a month benefit becomes $1,320 a month if that person waits all the way to age 70. Same thing applies, though. If they wait halfway through a year, it's a 4% increase. So you're not penalized for being born at any one part of the year and filing midway through the year. So, because you're an October birthday, right?
Yes, right.
Yep. So if you wanted to file in January, you wouldn't be penalized for that. You'd just receive a slightly higher payment than your previous birthday number. So, it'd be about a third bigger than what your last birthday number would have been. Now, the next question, of course, everybody always asks is, well, should I file early or should I file late?
Right.
And look, there's 1,000 opinions. I actually thought about including an article this week that was reasons to file early. I even hate having that discussion. People always also want to go down the road of talking about break-even numbers. Now, the break-even between age 66 and age 70, where, your higher check, but starting them later, the break-even's in your early 80s. Average life expectancy, even for men, is beyond that now.
Not much, but...
Not much. But the other side of that is anybody who says they know is lying to you, because we don't know. The minute I will know what the right answer was is the minute you die, because that is the part of the equation we can't know. But we can make some informed decisions. And this is where I always say anyone who's giving you advice in a vacuum about Social Security is out of their mind, first of all, because they don't know enough about you. But you need, first of all, look at your own genealogy. You need to look at your own health. You need to look at the genealogy and health of your spouse. If your spouse is going to be affected by your benefit, that's the one that many people missed. My grandmother's a great example of that. My grandfather retired at age 62 in the early 80s because that's what you did. That was the common sense. Go in, get your check. I'm sure you heard that for years.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Go in, get your check. And that's still out there. And the reality is that the percentages say no, that's not the answer anymore, but it's still stuck in our collective consciousness. Because for years it was true. Life expectancy was, for men was early 70s back then. But the impact was he took it, died relatively early, and then my grandmother lived off a reduced benefit for the rest of her life until she was 95 years old. And so, especially if you're looking at spousal benefits, which we'll talk about more in the next episode, you've got to take everything into account. So the Social Security decision is probably the most integral choice in financial planning from an income standpoint, because it's essentially, I always used to joke, it's like putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. You move one thing and 10 other things move. And so it really is more of a gut feel choice than a absolute, this is a correct answer, because you just don't really know. But you do need to look at your family genealogy. How long did your parents live? How long did your grandparents live? What your health has been like. Now, I'm opposite, right? I always would say to people, look, my grandfather was overweight, ate a pound of bacon every morning, smoked, was, relatively short for his weight, and died of a massive heart attack in his late 60s. His, brother, super skinny, tall, runner, also died of a massive heart attack, not too much older than him. And so men in our family don't tend to live that long. So I'll probably file early. I also don't have a spouse. So there's a whole bunch of things saying to me, I also have, as I've shared, a kidney condition. Like there's a bunch of stuff I have that says file early. And so I probably will. But
Right.
That could change if I ended up getting married and my spouse had longevity in her family, then I would definitely reconsider that. So bottom line is there is no golden answer to filing early versus filing late. It's always contingent on the other parts of your financial plan. And the bottom line is, look, if you need it, take it. Don't scrimp and save and make bad decisions in other places just to preserve that benefit. But on the other hand, don't just take it because you think, oh, I'm gonna, not live that long and I want to take it. Like, make an informed decision about it.
I want to just add a couple things there.
Yeah.
Dan, one, I'm going to put a plug in for understanding your longevity. I think we mentioned it in one of the episodes. Just I think it was called longevity.
Yep.
But livingto100.com. Go to that site and complete the questionnaire. It'll give you a pretty good idea, because it's going to go through grandparents, etc., and your health record, and give you an idea of what you can live to. But I just wanted to also then emphasize that one of the best things you can do is sit down with an advisor and complete a financial plan, and with different distributions and the amount of income you're going to need and the goals that you want to acquire during retirement, you can figure out if you're ever going to run out of money, and also if you should delay it and let it build up, or take it now. So let the numbers do the talking.
Yeah, Absolutely. It has to be a part of a larger financial plan. And I will second that. Yes, episode 8 was longevity, or for those of you that don't speak Philippines, that's longevity.
Use my laughter. Hear what I mean, not what I say. There you go. You can always tell when I start pausing, I'm going to have trouble. If it's more than one syllable, look out. It's going to throw me. So over to you with that, Dan. I'm eating some humble pie. A little humility is always good.
Well, I have to pile on just a little bit. We call the intro to our episodes anecdotes, and for the first several months in Philippines, that's an antidote.
and to mess with you is to love you. If you quit messing with me, Dan, then I know I'm in trouble. Because we are a conflict avoidance society.
The other thing you've taught me is know thyself, and that you definitely do.
Yes, self-awareness is pretty strong.
I get documents all the time emailed to me and just say, check this over for me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to change a few words and pull out a bunch of commas.
I'm a classic case where people skills, emotional competence, not academic, served me well.
That's why we make a good team. I'm the crossing the T's and
you're the brains
guy.
I'm the brawn.
So we've always said, I got the brains, you got the looks.
That's questionable. Brawn, maybe.
So we will move on to our article for this week, 7 Ways to Sabotage Your Financial Future. And I actually, many of our articles are either pet peeves of mine or they are things that kind of reinforce our other topics or things that we have talked about. Now, I really liked this one because it said a couple of things in slightly different ways than we have been saying them, although the themes are very similar to what we talk about every week on our podcast. So first, missing out on opportunities to save. 2, making big purchases with irrevocable consequences. 3, falling prey to lifestyle creep. Number 4, setting the wrong priorities. 5, neglecting the defense. 6, making temporary losses permanent. And then 7, doing it alone. So did you want to start out? Tell folks which points jumped out at you.
Okay. Making big purchases with irrevocable consequences leads me to one. An old saying we have, Dan, is make reversible decisions quickly, irreversible decisions slowly. Be very careful when you're going into making major purchases such as a house, a car, or a boat. What do they always say with, boats or RVs? The best day of a boat owner is the day they buy it and the day they sell it. Now, I also look at these people, we talked about it last time, and these people being those who social status is so important to them that they've got to own all these, the foreign cars. They've got to own the big boats. They've got to, yada, yada, yada. I look at, like we said that, it's that classic, that person is all hat and no cattle. I think if you can, meaning in this case, they just don't have any cash reserves. They haven't learned to save. And I'm of the school in my, y'all know, you've heard me many times. I'll be 63 now this October. Lisa and I bought brand new cars twice. I will hold off as much as possible. And I love going out shopping and finding these people who couldn't live with delayed gratification. I'm sorry, and when as Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked. We're going to hit recessions. People get laid off. They didn't plan for it. They don't have no cash to carry them through that tough time. They're the ones who are selling this stuff on 10 cents on a dime. That's the time I go shopping. That's my big one, Dan. That's the big one for this week.
Yeah, I second all of those. Not a surprise to most people. Falling prey to lifestyle creep, that one I mentioned last episode. I mentioned the YouTuber Kelsey from 7-4 Gear, who I follow, had that quote, live on your last paycheck, falling prey to lifestyle creep, letting your expenses expand to meet your free income, which is, again, don't beat yourself up. It's natural to do that, but do you really need to? You were doing just fine on your last paycheck. Get ahead a little bit. Give yourself a break. I think the way that's phrased, falling prey to lifestyle creep, I think is just a great way to reiterate that. Neglecting the defense, I think, is huge. So many people, especially, look, I'm a firm believer in financial planning, but I'm also not a disbeliever that people can do it themselves, especially while they're saving for retirement. But you have to dedicate time and effort to that. You can't just, you see so many people out there, just buy index funds and forget about it. It's not that easy. You've got emotions and biases, and neglecting the defense is one of those areas that I think too many people don't consider. Is, it's that classic index funds versus actively managed funds, which are better. Well, I mean, if you hold them, index funds, it's pretty easy to find that. But the caveat is, if you hold them, right? And it's the roller coaster. The roller coaster down is pretty rough on index funds. And so having a few actively managed funds that are focused on downside protection isn't the worst thing ever. I told the story in an earlier episode of my client that, I was sweating bullets because of I had lost him 6 figures, but they were only down 10% when the market was down 25. That's hugely powerful emotionally, and downside math is super important. The less you lose, the much easier it is to recover. And so I thought that neglecting the defense was a great point there. So any other last thoughts before we wrap up the episode for this week?
No, great session, Dan. Well done. You have mastery over that Social Security. That was self-evident. So my compliments to you.
Excellent. So just a reminder, next week we are going to cover Section 2. And in that section, we will cover working before and after full retirement age. What is the impact of working while you're on benefit, taxation of benefits, spousal benefits for current spouses as well as divorced spouses. And then lastly, I will touch on the solvency issue for the Social Security program. If you have topics for us or questions you would like us to answer in a question and answer section, reach out to us on our Twitter account. That's really the best way to get in touch with us, at @value_ability on Twitter, or you can reach out to us on our website, value-ability.com. Click on the Contact Us tab, and there's a form you can submit. Also, you can reach out to us on Facebook if you like. Search @ValueAbility, all one word, on Facebook. We do have a mailing list on our website, value-ability.com. Click on the Contact Us tab if you'd like updates about what we have going on. Wherever you find us, please like, review, subscribe, and share. Please pass on the podcast to people that you think would like our content. Next episode, Basics of Social Security Part 2. As I have mentioned, we will wrap up the Social Security topic. And before that episode, reach out to us and let us know. The Social Security topic is full of very individual, specific situations. So even though I'm covering a lot of general information, there is certainly a specific question out there that you have or a client of yours has that is very specific to their situation. So reach out to us and let us know those specific questions, and we should have some time to answer some detailed questions on the Social Security topic before next week. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us next week, and until then, remember that financial success comes from building a plan on the foundation of your values, and building your ability will help you get there. This is a podcast collaboration, not a peer-reviewed journal or a sponsored publication. We make no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this podcast, and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information, or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis. It is the listener's responsibility to verify their own facts. You should be aware of the real risk of loss in following any strategy or investment discussed on this podcast. Strategies or investments discussed may fluctuate in price or value. Investors may get back less than invested. Investments or strategies mentioned on this podcast may not be suitable for you. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You must make an independent decision regarding investments or strategies mentioned on this podcast. Before acting on information on this podcast, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular circumstances, and strongly consider seeking advice from your own financial or investment advisor. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. Assumptions are not reflective of the position of any entity other than the authors, and since we are critically thinking human beings, these views are always subject to change, revision, and rethinking at any time. Please do not hold us to them in perpetuity.